know what your risk is every day and where your plan is going to be. Most people don't find themselves at home during severe weather. So by checking the weather in the morning, seeing the chance for severe weather, hey, I'm going to be, out at this farm, I should ask them where their tornado shelter is. So if there is a tornado, I know where to go. So have a plan and think in advance of what you will do, and you'll always be prepared.
Weather forecasts aren't perfect. They can change very quickly. In Kansas, that means an increased chance of severe thunderstorms, lightning, tornadoes, and flash flooding in spring and summer. The National Weather Service in Topeka has designated March 6th through the 10th as Severe Weather Preparedness Week in Kansas, including a statewide tornado drill on March 7th. On today's Sound Living, getting ready for severe weather. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State meteorologist and manager of Mesonet, a network of environmental monitoring stations across the state, Chip Redmond, says that having a plan for what to do in the event of severe weather is the first step in protecting yourself and your family. Chip, in terms of severe weather, we know that it can occur any time in Kansas, but there really is a peak season for tornado activity in the state?
Yeah, we typically see tornadoes most often in the spring and early summer. We can see them year-round, but the most tornado frequency is definitely in that May to early June time frame, but that doesn't say that we can't have them outside that period, definitely.
And that's really one of the reasons why we're emphasizing being prepared and having a plan in place.
Yeah, tornadoes can happen any time of the year. So if you don't have a plan in place, you're not prepared, and you can't just focus on a couple of weeks throughout the year. You got to keep that plan and refresh it quite a bit. Now, when we talk about tornadoes and really high winds in general, tornadoes are just winds that spin, but we can have high winds in Kansas, a very strong magnitude, where we could exceed tornado strength just from straight line winds. And so anytime there's a wind threat, whether it's tornado or severe wind, the best thing to do is to get centrally located in your house, typically a bathroom that has full interior walls around it, or a stairwell or underneath the stairwell, or a basement. And the basement is obviously the best choice, but not everybody has basements, especially in places like out here in the Flint Hills where we can't dig in the rock in places. So getting centrally located, you don't want any windows in this room, and you want as many walls between you and the outside in all directions. That's by far the best place, and that'll protect you from flying objects, which is the biggest concern with wind. We don't see damage due to just wind all the time. We see damage because things are flying through the air, and that's the biggest concern. So by putting more walls between you and the outside, gives you that protection of more layers to have to break through to get to you. And then obviously the windows, they break easily and things can come through them. So inside your house is the best plan. And think about that where, you're going to have to get time to get your pets, to get any other family members to that location. So it won't be just issue a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning to get to a sheltered location. It's, hey, let's review how long it's going to take. Maybe I'm going to be at the store today. It's going to take me longer to get there. And so build in a really big buffer. So, hey, once a watch is issued, we can start to think about these things and maybe stay closer to home.
You mentioned watch. Talk a little bit about the difference between an advisory, a watch, and a warning.
Yeah, so an advisory is kind of out of the question for the most part when we talk about severe weather. They'll issue severe weather statements a lot of times that'll say, like, a severe thunderstorm is not occurring at this time, but there is a thunderstorm, and it might become severe or it's borderline severe. When we talk about severe, at least with a severe thunderstorm, we're talking 1-inch hail and up to 58-mile-an-hour winds. And so a statement will be it's not reaching that criteria, but it's at least noticeable. We'll see them a lot with a lot of lightning activity because lightning is a definite risk of thunderstorms, but something that often gets overlooked. So we'll see a statement a lot of times. Advisory, the only time you'll really see those these days is a flood advisory, and that's when the conditions are possible for water levels to rise quickly around creeks, say like Wildcat Creek or similar. If you look at a watch, I like to compare watches and warnings to your baking. When you go into your kitchen at any time throughout the day, you have a chance to have what I like to call a cupcake watch. So you've got all the ingredients in your kitchen, and a cupcake outbreak may occur at any time, but the conditions are all there. All the ingredients are there to make cupcakes. It's just a matter of will we have something form or not. And so once we get the cupcake warning or a severe thunderstorm or tornado warning, that means the ingredients are there, but we've now gotten a storm that's developed. It's likely producing that severe weather or tornado. That means it's occurring now. We're going to definitely have cupcakes. So be prepared and take shelter now. Whereas that watch is much more broad in perspective. Usually a large areas under a watch, and it's not necessarily focused just at your location. Where the warning is very geolocated, it's focused on your point, and you need to take action now.
They have increased the amount of time people have to prepare, but it's still not a lot of time.
Yeah, we've done really well with warnings especially, and a lot of that goes into place. We have a much better radar coverage. We have much better knowledge of the different things that we can look for in a thunderstorm for severe weather conditions. As a result, our warning times have dramatically increased. It doesn't mean we can't get a surprise spin up, typically from like a squall line, which is a line of thunderstorms that might occasionally spin up a tornado, versus like a supercell, distinct thunderstorm all by itself that is definitely producing all these hazards, much easier to forecast for. So we've really improved that, and communication's gone a long way. Whether we talk about weather radios, if people have these radios that pick up the frequencies of the alerts, so when they broadcast out an alert, your weather radio in your house goes off, and you know to take warning. So by having that direct link to the weather service with a weather radio is a great step in getting that warning quickly and timely, and has really helped that lead time as well. We look at other things such as our phones, for instance. Yes, they get alerts, but you have to have them turned on, which is the WEA alerts, and you can turn them on your phone through your settings, and it's a great backup if you don't have a weather radio nearby or if your weather radio doesn't work for some reason. But there is a delay there. It's got to go through the cell carrier, got to go through the towers and get to your phone, and there can be a delay of up to 5 minutes at times. So we've really improved lead time, and you need to be able to get that message quickly by trying to have a weather radio nearby on those days where you know a watch might be issued or the ingredients are there.
We talk about a winter weather safety kit. Do we also need one for the spring?
Yeah, so when we go into that centrally located place in your house, it's good to have resources that you might need. And we personally have a basement, so we have a stash, basically a personal stash of things we may need should we have to go down there for shelter during a severe weather event. Some of those things include just having your immediate can of food or two in case for some reason you were to get stranded down there. Having a blanket is really critical because if there ends up being flying debris, you want to cover yourself up and you want to have a blanket that'll help protect you. Helmets are also an easy thing to have down there. The bike helmets work great just because our head's the most sensitive thing in our body, and we want to protect it as much as we can. So helmets are a great ingredient, and don't forget them for the kids, too. Have your weather radio, or at least take it with you down there. Have an AM or FM radio. Those still exist, believe it or not. And a little portable handheld radio goes a long ways because cell service is very fragile. It can go down. And you can pick that up and hopefully get updates from the weather service through the media, and they're very good at getting media or timely updates and providing people with vital information. And that's a great lead into maps. Know where your location is, and it doesn't hurt to have a map down there with you of your nearby areas. So when they are talking about these areas, you can reference them on the map and say, okay, they say it's already past me and it's moving towards this other city that's to the east of me, and I'm going to be safe. So that's a great little tool that people don't think about. And then the very lastly is probably an extra power supply of some sort, whether it's a couple of batteries and a portable charger. That way you could charge up your phone if you were to need it, as well as your radio if you would need it. And that extra power could go a long ways because a lot of times we can have a power outage for an extended period of time if there is a widespread event. And if there is a widespread event and there's a lot of damage and there's debris out and about, it's really smart to have boots on. Have some boots down there or put boots on before you go down into your shelter so that when you walk out of your shelter, you could be safe and have some footwear that'll last. There's so many times where we'll have a strong tornado go through that's unfortunately very devastating for a local area, but people end up with just the clothes on their back. That might not be enough because there's weather that occurs after that. You want to make sure that you've got some sort of security and some sort of insulator to both your feet and your body, and an extra layer of clothes and boots go a long way.
If you do have children, if you practice this from time to time, it might help them to be a little less anxious once you have to go into this kind of tornado mode.
Yeah, that's a great point. And unfortunately, I learned that firsthand last year with the Manhattan tornado. I'm a household meteorologist. We have 3 kids, and we talk about severe weather all the time. And the kids think severe weather is the greatest thing until something different happens. And we say, okay, let's go down in the basement. And it's usually, not the greatest time. Maybe nighttime, maybe you're pulling them out of bed. We've done that multiple times where we pulled them out of bed and said, all right, let's go in the basement. We don't want to take a risk with this storm. And practice goes a long, long way. Of just, hey, guys, severe weather event, let's go to where we go, the safety place. And they should know right away, and they should be comfortable with it. So practicing it, once a month is an easy thing to do. I like to try to do it when there's a tornado. They basically test the tornado alerts or the test severe weather alerts once a week. And so whenever the kids are home and we have that opportunity to do it at the same time, it's a great time because they're not expecting it. And you can push them a little bit, but not too much to make them uncomfortable, and then get them used to where to go, what to do in that whole process. So when it happens, it can happen with ease. No one's stressing out. And it can almost be a fun experience. Make a game out of it. Put some toys down there so they know they're going downstairs and they're going to get to play with some toys instead of sleep. I mean, what doesn't make a kid more excited than that?
Tornadoes do tend to get a lot of the headlines, but as you mentioned before, severe thunderstorms can also cause damage. Flash flooding can cause damage, especially for those that are out on the roadway.
Yeah, flash flooding honestly kills more people than tornadoes in most years. And that's just because people really underestimate the power of water. The water can quickly rise in a lot of places, and even in areas where people are used to seeing water at and know they can drive through, it changes with the surroundings and the type of rain event we get. We're having a lot of changes around the Manhattan area where we're putting up new buildings and we're changing the landscape. And as a result, water behaves differently. We're also changing how water flows. And so we can get really strong water flows, even in the city or rural areas. No 2 rain events are the same. And so when we get heavy rain in a localized area, which is typically what happens with these flash flood events, that water flows differently than we'd expect before based upon that event and where it originated from. So that water can rise really quickly and can also create much more currents and turbulence than we'd expect. So anytime there's water in the road, there's a good meteorologist slogan out there that goes, turn around, don't drown. Because you do not know, as much as you think you may, you do not know what kind of turbulence and current that water has underneath it and what the state of the road is underneath it either. Because a lot of times that water wears out the road or wears out underneath the road and the road caves in and you can't tell because it's underwater. So there's tons of inherent risk of water on the road. Don't take that chance. Turn around, don't drown, and find another way to your destination. One of the areas we really think about, when at least we talk to the Manhattan area, is Wildcat Creek. That area can flood in about 3 or 4 hours if we get a heavy rain event upstream. And knowing how to get those notifications, knowing what your plan will be and where higher ground is and where to go when those kind of warnings are issued.
Chip, when you go out and talk to various organizations, what's kind of your take-home message for staying safe in severe weather?
My take-home message is to really just be aware of your surroundings. Situational awareness, whether it's you're driving down the road or you're going to bed at night. Know what's coming up. Know what the forecast and know what's going on around you at all times. Forecasts aren't perfect, and they can change very quickly. So making a habit out of checking the weather in the morning and checking the weather before you go to bed, and then checking more often during the day if there is severe weather expected. And just know what your risk is every day and where your plan is going to be. Most people don't find themselves at home during severe weather. So by checking the weather in the morning, seeing the chance for severe weather, hey, I'm going to be out at this farm, I should ask them where their tornado shelter is. So if there is a tornado, I know where to go. So have a plan and think in advance of what you will do, and you'll always be prepared.
That's K-State meteorologist and manager of Mesonet, Chip Redmond. More information about severe weather preparedness is available online at weather.gov. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.